Hey everyone, Horror Bob here from Horror Review here on the YouTube channel here for the Horror Review, or soon to be Let's Talk Horror.com. This is kind of funny. I'm actually redoing a video review that I did already, and I gotta stop doing this stuff like 3 o'clock in the morning, because man, if you if you think I sound like shit now, you gotta hear me 3 o'clock in the morning. I sound like one of those people from that show Swamp People on the History Channel. Couldn't understand a damn word I was saying. Anyway, I got a Blu-ray here that of a film that I'm sure just about every horror fan has seen, and if you haven't seen it, then you have to. Actually, you have to see the whole trilogy. What I'm talking about is Sam Raimi's first trilogy before he did Spider-Man. Because most people hear Sam Raimi, they think, oh, it's the guy who directed Spider-Man. But actually, he directed another trilogy before that, a horror trilogy known as The Evil Dead. Now, the Blu-ray I have here is for Evil Dead 2. This is the 25th anniversary edition of Evil Dead 2. What you won't see on here, as my white balance goes crazy, is the Dead by Dawn thing that should be right along here somewhere. Like it is on all the other discs. Like, let me just make one thing clear, okay? And I've argued with people about this, and I've seen it on message boards, I've seen it everywhere. A lot of people think Evil Dead 2, the title for Evil Dead 2 is Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. It actually is just Evil Dead 2. The Dead by Dawn thing was added like a tagline back in the day to the poster and all that stuff, and people thought that was the real title, but it was actually just a tagline. It's been confirmed by Sam Raimi. I've actually talked to his brother Ted Raimi about it when I had met Ted Raimi about 10 years ago, and I had discussed it with him. And so, yeah, it is just Evil Dead 2. And Liongate's DVD, who released this, I believe, yeah, Liongate's released this Blu-ray. They actually did it right by not including that Dead by Dawn on there. So anyway, let me talk a little bit about Evil Dead. Evil Dead was like, I want to say, now, well, you know, I was going to use the Blair Witch thing, but or Paranormal Activity, but it really wasn't. Like, but it was of its day, like back in the early '80s when Evil Dead was made. It was like that independent horror film that nobody really knew about, but gained like this cult status over time. Because you got to think about it. Back in the late '70s, early '80s, you had Friday the 13th, you had Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street came out a few years after, but you had those established horror directors. You had John Carpenter, you had Wes Craven, Sean Cunningham, you know, you had all these guys who were, you know, even Romero was there in the mix, even though his Night of the Living Dead, you know, he had Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead and all that stuff, but you had these guys, they were up and coming, making these horror films, and Sam Raimi was this young guy. I mean, he was in his early 20s when he made this. I believe he might have even been in his, you know, late teens, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I know the guy was making movies since he was like 14 with a film camera. But Evil Dead came out, and it was innovative. It was like, you know, a lot of these upscale independent films that you see today. I mean, Evil Dead was like the independent horror film that basically kind of almost paved the way during the 80s for like a lot of, you know, independent horror directors to really, you know, get their vision going and everything. I think the first Evil Dead was made for like $100,000, or maybe less than that. Anyway, so if you've seen the original Evil Dead, you know it's about a guy named Ash and a group of friends. They go to this cabin in the woods, and they find a tape recorder in the basement of the cabin, and they find the Book of the Dead, the Necronomicon, or whatever the hell, I can't even say it correctly. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, they turn this tape recorder on, it reads this passage in like this, you know, foreign language or whatever, and all of a sudden the woods come to life, and there's poltergeist activity, and then everyone starts to get possessed by demons, and everybody dies except this guy Ash. Alright, and the second film, Evil Dead 2, which we're talking about now, is almost like a remake of Evil Dead. It had a bigger budget. I believe it had producer Dino De Laurentiis behind it, if I'm not mistaken. No, that was Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness, I had him behind it. But anyway, you know, this had a bigger budget, and Sam Raimi he kind of basically remade the first film, but kind of didn't really hint it. It was like a sequel, remake, almost a little bit together, because you have Ash with like a whole, you know, Ash is still in it, Bruce Campbell playing Ash, but he has like a whole new group of people with him. He's got like a new girlfriend, and he goes to the cabin, and basically the same thing happens, with the exception of a few different things. Like he, you know, well, here's a spoiler. I'm gonna throw a few spoilers in here, so if you don't want to listen, you know, shut the video off or fast forward it a little bit. You know, the girlfriend becomes possessed. You know, the same thing that happens in the first film happens. The girlfriend becomes possessed. He kills and buries the girlfriend. You know, people start showing up. He kills them. He gets possessed himself. He ends up cutting his hand off, where he gets that whole tool shed. You know, the tool shed thing. Or was it work shed, whatever he says. You know, thing, and he straps the chainsaw to his hand and all that stuff. And, you know, the whole thing basically begins again. He's in this cabin, he's fighting demons, he's fighting the woods, and before you know it, he gets sucked into this time warp, which leads to the film that Dito De Laurentiis did produce, Army of Darkness, which is the third installment in the Evil Dead series. Which is pretty cool if you haven't seen that. It's like this whole it's cheesy, but it has like this. It's like this whole medieval thing going on. So, you know, Evil Dead is the trilogy is really cool. Like I like all three of the films, and supposedly you know, you hear these rumors all the time. There's gonna be Evil Dead 4, which is supposed to take place in a gas station, and then now you hear there's gonna be a remake, which people are like freaking out about. And there's also Evil Dead the musical, also, which is kind of you never saw it, but the idea behind it is pretty cool. So anyway, let's talk about Evil Dead 2. A lot of cool things about Evil Dead 2. You have, you know, with the bigger budget, they actually shot this in a school gym. They built a cabin in a school gym in North Carolina, and it's funny because there's a lot of mistakes in the film that if you watch it with the commentary with Sam Raimi, he points out all these mistakes. And Sam Raimi was known for what he did with Evil Dead, and even in Evil Dead 2, is he created all these contraptions and to make these really neat camera movements. And some of the camera movements you see in Evil Dead are actually like the first time you'll ever see that kind of that use of a camera before. Like there's one scene where like it's like the demons, it's like POV of the demons running through like the woods and everything like that. And it was actually Sam Raimi took his film camera and he mounted it to a 2x4 and just held it in his hands like this and ran around with the camera, film camera, on this 2x4 as fast as he could, and it looked like this demon running through the woods, you know, through thicket and all that stuff. And he, you know, he does it in this film too. And while he's doing this scene, it's a scene where the demon's running through the cabin. You could actually, if you look up, you could actually see over the top of the set. You could actually see the roof of the gym, and it's something that's not noticeable when you're watching the film. But if you happen to look up, you know, the top part of the frame, you'll notice it during the one scene. So, you know, it's cool that these are cool little filmmaking things that you just find, you know. It's neat, you know. So this, like, you know, like I described Evil Dead 2, basically the plot and all that stuff, and how it's a lot like Evil Dead 1. And if I'm gonna like rate this film, I'm gonna give it 4 stars, because I just like the first film, the second film, the Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness is actually the weaker of the 3, but they're good movies. It's a lot of fun. It's like that trilogy that some people just really didn't know about. You know, I didn't really find out more about, like, a lot about Evil Dead until I was in, you know, maybe 9th to 10th grade. I think I saw the first Evil Dead. I saw like a VHS copy. You know, it was just one of those films you rented off the shelf at the video store. You know, I watched it with a bunch of friends and stuff like that, and didn't think it was gonna be that big of a deal in my life until I really, you know, started seeing the sequels, started reading more about everything behind it, and you know, I must own, I'm not even kidding you guys, I must own like 6 copies of Evil Dead on DVD, about like 4 copies of Evil Dead 2, and God knows how many copies of Army of Darkness I have. I mean, there were so many different versions of these films released on DVD. And I think I have 2 versions of Evil Dead on Blu-ray. This is my first version of Evil Dead 2 on Blu-ray, actually. So anyway, if you have the DVDs, there's a lot of the same features are on the DVDs. So let me just, there's a ton of special features on this Blu-ray, which makes it worth having. I mean, I think any version of Evil Dead, Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness is worth having on Blu-ray or DVD. So let me get into the features here, and I'm going to read them off. First off, you have audio commentary with Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, co-writer Scott Spiegel, and special effects artist Greg Nicotero. So you pretty much know who all of them are. Greg Nicotero, he's this big special effects artist. Right now, he's working on the Walking Dead television series. He's worked on a ton of things, and I think he was just like just a regular makeup person on this. I don't even think he was in charge or anything like that. Then you have the Dead by Dawn like the featurette, which is the filmmakers talk about how they made the sequel and made the film and how it was on the big screen and stuff like that. I think that's the documentary where they talk about everything that happened on the film. It's pretty cool. You have the Chosen Ones, which is like basically interviews with all the actors. Madman Sam, which talks the cast and crew talk about working with Sam Raimi, who I hear is one of the best guys to work with. Dead Effects was which is look into the makeup effects with all the creators. You got Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger, Robert Kurtzman on there, all interviews. Reanimated, which is basically like the details of all the stop motion in the film. Methods to Madness it's a close look at the cinematography of the movie. Rosebud. Now you hear Rosebud, like a lot of people are like, Rosebud, what are we talking about, Citizen Kane? And it's not. Rosebud was actually like the production company that they had to, I think it was to release the film. Rosebud Release Incorporation, I have up here on my screen. And they only released 2 films, and it's kind of funny because they released Evil Dead 2 in 87, and then they had a film called Stacy that they released in 2009. That probably can't be right. But yeah, Rosebud was actually the releasing company. But this featurette is a detailed examination of the film's editing, the original release, and how it became a cult classic. Then you have Road to Waynesboro, Waynesboro is, I believe, where they shot that was in North Carolina, where they shot the film. And it's a journey looking at the property with the location and property master and filmmaker Tony Elwood. An all new journey. So it's actually I haven't watched that documentary on this disc yet, but it's like a look back basically of where they shot the film and everything like that. That's with filmmaker Tony Elwood. And then Cabin Fever, which is a series of production videos taken on set by Greg Nicotero, special effects artist Greg Nicotero. And then you have your archival featurettes, the still galleries, the trailers, all that fun stuff. So yeah, this disc got a lot. It's got a lot on it. And like I said, it's the Evil Dead 2 25th Anniversary Edition here on Blu-ray. And well worth picking up. I mean, this is a awesome film. If you haven't seen the Evil Dead films, you're just cheating yourself. I mean, if you're a new fan of horror, get the Evil Dead films. If you're a new fan to horror, let me just give you the best advice in the world. If you're watching some of the horror stuff now, you're just cheating yourself. You got to go back. You got to go back in time, and you got to visit these classics. The Evil Dead trilogy it's a classic trilogy, classic horror trilogy, and you're just cheating yourself by not even picking up this disc. So definitely well worth it. Go out and get it. Buy it where you need to buy it. Once again, it's being released by Lion Gates, and you probably go to I always say it wrong, but I think it's like Buy Lion Gates or something like that. LionGatesShop.com. That's what it is. You probably buy it there or at any other retailer. Alright, once again, Horror Bob here from Horror Review, and you'll get more reviews soon from me. Thanks again.